Oh, Bethesda, 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 what a mess we find ourselves in. Ahoy folks, Gregor here for Pure Xbox with our review of Starfield's new DLC, Shattered Space. But quickly, before we get going, this review is written by PJ O'Reilly for PureXbox.com and adapted by me.
So, the Great Serpent sends you to me. You will be forever changed.
Well now, this is all a bit unexpected. As big fans of Starfield who had plenty good to say about the base game upon release, we were pretty sure that Shattered Space was going to be a slice of DLC that was right up our intergalactic street. Sure, there were plenty of reasons to be irked about this hugely anticipated sci-fi universe when it originally launched, and we totally get why some other outlets chose to score it lower than we did back at the time. Starfield was a big messy thing, and it's been a real love it or hate it affair all over. Of course, all of these various issues are well documented by now, there's no need to regurgitate everyone's dissatisfactions, but the one thing that we were convinced of due to the mixed reaction was that Bethesda would use its first major expansion for its beleaguered game as a chance to refresh, rework, and reintroduce players to an experience revitalized.
After the initial jump, areas of the Oracle have somehow been sectioned off by strange energy fields or barriers.
There was an expectation that this would be best foot forward time. However, what we actually got with Shattered Space is a roughly 15-hour fix of very average narrative content, set in a new environment that does very little to impress. Yep, it sucks to say, but Shattered Space is a disappointment on nearly every level, and it's one that begins to annoy as soon as you boot into it, if indeed you can even get it started in the first place.
Wow.
Rather than grabbing returning players and new recruits by the scruff of their spacesuits with some awe-inspiring opening sequence that showcases the very best of Starfield, or even by refreshing them with regards to the game's rather overwhelming controls, Bethesda has instead decided to run with a zero-gravity shootout that's sure to have everyone tearing their hair out from the word go. It's a terrible way to welcome anyone to Starfield. We hate zero gravity, especially against cheap warping enemies, and once the gravity is turned back on, things never really take off or add anything of worth to the base experience. We've still awarded Shattered Space an average score, and that's all based on the fact that we actually enjoy the core shooting and exploring. Remember, plenty of folk don't even like these parts, but everything else here just feels very badly judged.
You did hear an Asco. You have been chosen.
The new narrative strand sees you once again framed as a very special messiah of sorts who everyone knows and recognizes. It's getting a little old now, Bethesda. You receive a distress beacon from the Oracle space station, which has warped into your view in full-on emergency mode, and then set off on a quest that takes you in and around every nook and cranny of the DLC's new chunk of space, Varun Kai. This new planet is definitely an upgrade over those that you've explored in the base game. It's busier, better organized into districts, and it's also got a fairly impressive city in the form of Dazra, which is initially interesting enough to encourage some excitement.
Every moment we delay, a Nasco descends further into the void.
But then it all just flaps around for 15 hours. Where are all the dazzling set pieces or meaningful changes? Where are all the big surprises or new mechanics? Heck, where are all the new ships and guns and new companions? Where are all the interesting new enemies? It's all very autopilot in its vibe, this DLC. Sheesh. It feels more like a shrug than a proper attempt to redress the balance, especially given how much flack Bethesda got on the initial release. We don't want to spoil the plot, we don't want to go into detail on the story, but it's just not up to much. The acting is odd in places, and we've even had discussions about how weird it sounded in fact.
I don't know where the Zealots are keeping Sahima, but...
The gunplay hasn't seen any changes, and there's been no dice on any of the stuff we thought we'd actually see, like genuine new biomes or even actual unique enemies. These ones are just reskins. Surely now is the time, Bethesda, to do something cool. Another bite of the cherry, no? The best thing about Shattered Space in the end is the new map. That's how bland this DLC is. The new map is a bit better than old maps. That's your lot. The opportunity to do anything interesting hasn't been taken, We've got no meaningful upgrades or additions to any aspect of this huge experience that is Starfield, and as a result, I'm more than ready to put this one to bed. It does sort of seem as though that's what Bethesda has decided to do, to be fair.
If you'll kindly leave, I must get back to my things.
Finally, and with regards to performance, there are consistent frame rate issues in the balanced 40 FPS mode on Xbox Series X. Jetpacking across open terrain results in fairly egregious stuttering, for example, and we also ran into plenty of bugs, with one workbench sending us back to the console's dash, and another getting us stuck in a loop that we had to shut the game down to rectify. We've also got brain-dead enemies who just stand still during scraps, NPCs wandering into conversations, texture glitches, and falling through scenery are, of course, all present at points too. So, not a great report in terms of how they fixed the performance either. There are other problems, stuff like the fact that your companion has no idea of the current mission when you interact with them, instead continuing to talk about whatever previous mission you happen to be on before jumping into the DLC. You can exhaust their conversation options, but it never fixes itself. So yeah, that sort of breaks immersion, and it's indicative of how much effort it feels has been put in all over this one in general. What a bloody shame. Starfield Shared Space is a big disappointment in almost every way. We loved the base game for all its flaws, and we were willing this to be a big, exciting DLC drop that would make us fall in love with it all over again. However, what we've got here is a very average narrative expansion that fails to add any big choices, upgrades, new enemies, biomes, loot, or anything that could potentially excite or draw in new players. It's buggy, janky, badly acted in places, and there are a myriad of bugs and performance issues to be ironed out. What a missed opportunity. So that's about it for PJ's time, awarding Shared Space a 5 out of 10, but I thought I'd add a little extra too. So for me, preparing for Shared Space was my excuse to jump back into Starfield, a game which I already had a level 24 character in and was feeling pretty optimistic about. But for whatever reason, the DLC just wouldn't start for this level 24 Jackie Daytona. I spent hours hopping from system to system to boot it up and nothing. So I begrudgingly made a new character, plugged my way through the lengthy opening mission, which isn't bad by the way. I was just keen to get going. And as soon as I could, I hopped in my ship and the DLC started immediately. What is stupid about this DLC is as a new player, a new level 3 player, this mission will impose itself on you from the get-go, but it's advised that you have to be roughly level 35 to play. So of course, poor old Nell got one-shot blasted as soon as she set foot on the Oracle. Not a good start. So with that in mind, I set off and leveled up my new character as quickly as I could, which wasn't very quick, but it was genuinely fun. Starfield is a fun game when you get into it, but the point to all this exposition is I loved leveling Nell up for the DLC via the base game content, but then once the DLC started, I genuinely wanted to stop playing. It's just not fun. It's janky, it's boring, the planet in my opinion is ugly, I'm suspicious of AI voice acting in places, and the whole thing stinks.
If word spreads, I'll know exactly who's to blame.
The Oracle's opening section was interesting, but I understand if you're upset with this DLC. It costs money, and it's crap. Alright, well, there's my grumpy addition to the review. Let us know your plans for Shared Space in the comments, and all that's left to say is bye-bye for now. Cheerio!